Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks type thing. Opening day eve prediction show. Nostradamus. It's the best show of the season, everybody.
Everyone's undefeated right now, so yeah, it can't be better than this. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes. I'm Ryan. Yes, it is Baseball Eve on a Wednesday night. We're recording this mere hours before the first pitches of opening day 2024. So obviously Pete over there is fired up. I'm fired up. Yeah. We've got lots to talk about before we get to our prediction section, annual prediction show. But of course, we need to revisit the Shohei Ohtani saga as it exists in this moment. I'm not sure we've learned much of anything since last week, but we'll go over what we have to say, I guess. But we did learn that the Cubs potentially are opening next season in Tokyo to play off the similar theme to the Seoul series we just went through last week in Korea. The Cubs might be opening in Tokyo, which is interesting. The Cubs did not sign free agent pitcher Jordan Montgomery, much to my chagrin. We'll talk about that. I've been talking about him for weeks now, but I've got a little bit of a Tigers segment talking about Matt Manning getting sent down to the minors unexpectedly. He did not make the opening day rotation, so
shocked.
I don't think hardly anyone saw that coming. And of course, we will end the show with our annual Nostradamus predictions, which might be more useless than ever. My goal at least this year, you and I have been very similar in our picks for the last 2 years at least, maybe more. I'm going to make sure that does not happen. So you're gonna be shocked by some of my picks here. So
oh yeah, you're gonna be shocked by some of mine too. Oh shit.
Oh no.
Anyway,
hopefully you zigged while I zagged, and we both didn't do the same thing. We'll find out. It'll all work out in the end somehow because all of this is meaningless.
What?
I think we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
Oh boy.
News dominated by the Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal. That news broke, I think, was it 2 hours, 1 hour before we went on the air last Wednesday night?
That is correct.
And I'm not sure any of the facts have changed or any of the revelations have changed very much since last week. We pretty much learned everything we needed to know in those first 2 hours. Shohei did speak to the media, which was fairly useless. He, of course, denied betting on any sports, or certainly not baseball. He said that his former interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, is a liar and a thief, which was very predictable. But yeah, I think we're kind of on the facts finding tour. I guess we're pretty much where we began. A couple of news items did come out with little sketchiness on the public biography of Ippei Mizuhara. There's some discrepancies there. He's listed years ago. He was listed on the Angels website as a graduate of University of California, Riverside in 2007. And that university has subsequently said he never went to this school. At least we have no one by that name on our books. Also, he was listed as employed by the 2012 Red Sox as an interpreter, and the Red Sox have come out and say he never worked for us. So the evidence is kind of piling up against the interpreter that there might be some lies, at least in his past. He's definitely a gambler. That is something that is beyond dispute. The question is whether he was gambling on his own or gambling with Shohei Ohtani's money or his interest in mind. So I don't know. What have you thought over this last week since we've delved into this subject?
I think there's more of the onion that needs to be peeled back when I start to doubt things when a player holds a press conference, doesn't allow any questions to be asked, and just rattles off a 12-minute statement. I mean, it just makes me feel uneasy about the whole situation. We talked about it last week, and the story's been removed everywhere. I've tried to find it again, but there was that initial report where Ohtani admitted he knew what was going on and was helping him out.
I've got it here.
You have
I've got it here, actually. Yeah, the Athletic just reported it again earlier this
did they?
week.
Okay,
So it's not,
yeah.
yeah, it's not totally gone. What they wrote was, and it's a question. It's the critical question of this whole thing is they actually quoted someone from Ohtani's camp, their crisis management director, said, quote, he was paraphrasing or quoting Shohei himself on that first day. Yes, I sent several large payments. That's the maximum amount I could send. So it's like,
yeah,
and then the next day, it's like, no, I didn't do anything. Ipe is a liar and he stole from me. We talked about that last week, how the most damning thing is the two completely different stories out of Shohei. And I think what they're trying to do is trying to say there was some miscommunication within his camp, which includes Ipe himself, because he was, apparently lying to them all. So those conflicting reports are from multiple sources within his camp then. So that's where the onion you refer to needs to be peeled back. I'm not sure how deep we're going to get into that onion or how much we're going to learn. Major League Baseball did announce they are finally investigating this. That was like a late Friday evening news dump. They announced that they would be investigating. And you think about it, they don't have subpoena power. They don't, they can investigate all they want. Doesn't mean they're going to get any information that, a law enforcement agency could get, such as the FBI, who is investigating this. But baseball also has no interest in tearing down their biggest money-making machine right now. Their most worldwide popular athlete they have. So there's an inherent conflict of interest. Of course, that's a cynical viewpoint, but that's where we are these days.
It's the reality of the situation. It's a disaster if they go through a process that finds out somehow. I mean, I think it gets sketchy even if he knew. I think there has to be some sort of slap on the wrist if he initiated the payments, because any association to gambling and being a professional athlete is just prohibited.
Well, it's prohibited because it was illegal in the state of California. It's 100% prohibited by Major League Baseball rules.
Yeah.
If he was doing this through DraftKings, that's a little less murky. I think you can do that. You certainly can't do that on baseball. And so far, we've had no one has said that Ipe or Shohei or anybody has been betting on baseball. But we'll see, where that comes out. That's where things get horrific if that is the case, which I certainly hope not. The way we're going to learn more about this is the federal investigation into the bookie. I think his last name is Boyer. There's a lot of questions that I would have for him, at least. But number one would be, why would he allow this interpreter so much leeway that he would let him get almost $5 million in debt?
Let me tell you how it works.
It wasn't with the if it wasn't with the understanding that he's got a financial backer that you may or may not have heard of, named Shohei Ohtani.
100%, dude. That's it. You answered your own question.
But that could just be because, it's not, maybe it wasn't, explicitly implied that this is everything I bet here is going to be backed up by Shohei. It may have been just that we're friends and the guy's like, fuck yeah, I love telling my clients that I've got Shohei Ohtani's buddy booking with me or making bets with me. It's good for business. But there's more questions than that. Like what, these are serious allegations against Ipe now directly from Shohei Ohtani. But I haven't heard or seen anywhere that Ohtani has filed charges against Ipe. If he has stolen $5 million from him and lied about everything, the Dodgers fired him. But where is the legal action? And if what Shohei Ohtani, if what Ohtani is saying is totally untrue, why isn't Ipe filing a lawsuit against him for, wrongful firing and libel and slander and all that? There's got to be legal, some sort of legal proceedings going on at some point with this. So it's just strange. All of it's strange. You could break this down saying Ipe is either the worst friend you've ever had, a liar, a grifter, a thief, or maybe he's the best friend you could ever have because he's taken the fall for Shohei Ohtani. I don't think we can go in one or the other direction at this point with clarity, at least. I mean, we'll all have our leanings, but the evidence doesn't bear either side out necessarily.
Here's where I go with that in that I think there's a little bit of both. I think what happened is Ohtani's camp saw the comments that he was aware that he was wiring money to a bookie, and we're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't admit to that. So then they got a hold of him, and the lawyers immediately got in front of the media and were like, this money's been stolen. Ohtani was unaware,
right.
It. But he wasn't. Why would he have said that? Now, there is this little, did you read? I'm sure you read it. There's this little idea that Ohtani presented this idea that he didn't know what the interpreter was saying because that was being translated from Ohtani. Ohtani has claimed that he didn't know that his best bud and interpreter was telling the media that he was fully aware of making payments for a gambling bet to a bookie, which honestly, all right, that could be true.
So why is
there's no lawsuit? Yes.
Well, no, why is he telling, if he stole all this money from Ohtani, why is he telling ESPN this? If you stole $4.5 million from somebody, why would you tell a news outlet? I mean, it's crazy. Like the logical steps in this make no sense. And there's just such a murky cloud because frankly, Shohei Ohtani is a murky cloud of an individual. We know very little about him. He got married this offseason and it was a complete surprise to everyone in the world. Apparently she's like a famous professional basketball player in Japan.
She is.
All of a sudden they were married. I kind of made the joke earlier. There was all that mystery around the name of his dog. And then he finally revealed the dog's name was Decoy, which is even more confusing or lends to more mystery. He's just shrouded in mystery. And that, it can be his personality. If he doesn't want the public eye, he's got a global spotlight on him. You could see why he'd be a bit of a recluse, but it does not work into his favor at this point when there's so much, all of this is shrouded in mystery and shadow, I guess.
I don't know if you had the opportunity to use any translate programs and put in Ohtani, but I use Google Translate and
wow, that's some hardball deep throat there.
Yeah, when I put in Ohtani, Pete Rose was the translation. So I also tried iTranslate and it came out as Gambling Rose. So I don't know. It's not looking good for Ohtani's American translation of his name.
Well, you did see Pete Rose's comments.
Oh my God. Priceless.
Could not resist. He was sitting in some kind of buffet line
probably
at some Vegas.
In Vegas.
Yeah. I would say a sports book in Vegas with his really jowly friend. Giant head, giant jowl. Had to introduce him. But Pete Rose had to chime in, of course, on this. He said, I wish I had an interpreter back in the 70s and 80s. I would be scot-free.
I know. It's classic. It's fucking classic. And to be honest, right now, a bit unrelated because there's no evidence to say that Ohtani placed any bets where there was clear evidence that Rose had placed bets. But you know what? It made me laugh out loud. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you the other thing that I was impressed with is somehow Pete Rose at his age can rock a white on white cap and actually pull it off. I was astounded by that.
He's just been doing that for about 10 years. Yeah, the Cincinnati cap he's rocking these days. He's the hits king, man. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
I don't think I could pull it off, but this guy can. This motherfucker can.
He just can't go to Cooperstown.
No, I did. I really did love it though. It was. I expected it, and it just made me.
I don't like seeing his face, but yeah, I mean, I guess he said something clever at least. But if he's going to be on my social feed, but
it was a little too much build up to get to it, though. I mean, his,
Yeah.
to your point, jowly friend was like,
Handler,
me and Pete, we were sitting here and discussing some certain situations that have been happening in Major League Baseball. Like, oh, you're so
Pete's
funny.
Got something to say.
Yeah, you're so funny. What a great setup.
Well, now that this story has existed in the void of regular season games, so now that the games are starting tomorrow, I'm wondering if this is going to take a bit of a back burner. But there's still that ongoing federal investigation, and this MLB investigation, whatever that turns up. We've got a lot more to learn still, and I feel like we're a week into this, and we've hardly scratched the surface. Well, unless you had any other comments on the Shohei situation.
I got all my jokes in. I'm good.
All right. You cross them off your list there?
Yeah. Checking off my jokes. Working better than the joke last week about Bruno Mars, which you didn't even know about that story. So
oh, yeah. That totally
at least I got a chuckle out of you this week.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Well, staying in East Asia, there was a rumor that the Cubs may actually be involved in a similar series to the Seoul series we just went through with the Dodgers and Padres. The Cubs have been privately informed that they will be playing the Dodgers once again in Tokyo in probably late March of 2025 to open the season. That's not too shocking, considering, of course, Shohei Ohtani would be involved, Yamamoto would be involved, as they were this year, but also Japanese Nippon League legends Seiya Suzuki and Shota Imanaga would be involved. So that makes a lot of marketing sense.
Totally.
I think Japan would be fired up for that. I'm not sure how much Cubs fans like myself would be fired up for that, as we kind of discussed. Like, I was wondering if you woke up early last Wednesday to watch either of those games. I was up by maybe halfway through the first game to catch some interesting events. But yeah, Cubs fans will be getting up at 5 a.m. most likely local time, or Chicago time. I'll be getting up at 6 to watch that, to have games that count. And then they come back to do more spring training games as the schedule played out this year
right,
too. So
exactly.
Just a strange thing. I get it. I guess the only thing I would worry about is, jet lag or somehow it affecting the Cubs in that first week of the season. I guess we'll see how that plays out this year with the Dodgers and Padres coming back. I don't think, they built in a week of lead time for this, at least this year. So it shouldn't be an issue. That was smart. But of course, all of this, we need to take it with a grain of salt, because this has not been released by Major League Baseball. This is a report by our favorite Bob Nightingale from USA Today. Yeah. He said that they were privately notified, the Cubs at least. I believe the Dodgers were as well, but that was his reporting. And I haven't seen that. I've seen it, repeated, but I haven't seen any other sourcing on that. So we'll see if that ends up being true. But
as was
Bob,
we've
seen many things.
He was also privately notified.
Yeah. So we'll see if there's an announcement coming forth. But there is some logic behind it. I could see why they would definitely want to do that in Tokyo. I think it would be good for the game, not necessarily for my sleeping patterns, but I'll get over it. I'll stop crying. It'll actually be kind of cool to have relevant baseball or as early as possible, because March, the months of January, February, and March are fucking awful here in the Midwest. So having a game in mid-March would be kind of cool to watch. I just wish it wasn't at 6 a.m., but what can you do?
Yeah, stop your bitching, Jesus.
Man, I'm going to get up early to watch the Cubs.
I'm actually not going to stop my bitching, because I need to transition over to the news that Jordan Montgomery was not signed by the Cubs, as I had hoped. He was signed by the Arizona Diamondbacks.
D-Bucks!
It's interesting because he obviously was the World Series winning pitcher for winning World Series pitcher for the Texas Rangers, going against those Arizona Diamondbacks. So he's facing the enemy right away. But what's more interesting about it is that it's only a 1-year guaranteed deal worth $25 million. Somebody, I think it was The Athletic, of course, pointed out the Angels' Robert Stevenson has more guaranteed money on his contract. And I had to look him up.
Who?
And he did get drafted in our AL only league, but I wasn't sure if he actually did. But yes,
it would have been funny if he just told me he was on my team, and I'm like, who?
Yeah, he's got a 3-year, $33 million guaranteed deal. It's obviously less average annual value, but it's kind of amazing how Scott Boras clients have just gotten crushed in this offseason. This is the lowest guaranteed money of his big four clients, so it has declined with every day essentially. So Scott Boras is definitely 0 for 4 on his big name deals. That isn't necessarily, I mean, as much as I'd love to pile on Scott Boras, it's not entirely his fault or his strategic failure on his part. The biggest mitigating factor is essentially half of Major League Baseball's budgets were undercut by this whole Diamond Baseball Group, Bally Sports bankruptcy.
Right.
And so many teams, essentially 15 teams, half the league didn't really know what their financial situation is going forward, or didn't for most of this offseason. And some of the cases have been settled, and most teams have either figured out what their TV deals are going to be going into the season. But there's a lot of uncertainty, and for teams to be willing to spend the $100+ $200+ million deals, multiple 6+ year deals that Scott Boras clients are always rumored to be getting, it was just not in the cards for half the league. So that market dried up. Now, whether Scott Boras should have anticipated that is another thing, and maybe got his client signed earlier. But I guess we can still do a victory lap over Scott Boras. But the contract is actually really interesting. It's only the 1 year guaranteed for $25 million, but there are vesting options for a second year. Like if he merely starts 10 games this year, he automatically gets $20 million next year in a deal if he wants it. He also, if he gets up to 18 starts, that adds in another $2.5 million, and then another $2.5 million if he gets up to 23 starts. So those are very attainable goals to get another $25 million. So
yeah, totally.
But it's still a total loss. And when you consider Scott Boras' perspective, again, it's a win for the player. $25 million guaranteed is nothing to sneeze at, and he can go be a free agent next year, potentially when there are 30 teams with that understand their financial standing going forward that would be bidding on his services. And it's a win for the Diamondbacks. They get a World Series winning pitcher in their World Series roster. So they've built an interesting squad over there. We might get into them a little bit as we get into Nostradamus predictions, but I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on those D-backs. But that's all I've got for I'm closing the book now on Jordan Montgomery, as I have been hoping that the Cubs might sign him. We'll get into the Cubs rotation and my Cubs predictions.
Hope is a
coming
dangerous
up shortly,
thing, Smitty.
Yeah, I know it, but I might surprise you still. We'll see when we get there. Well, finally, before we get to those predictions, I've got one Tigers story I wanted to talk about, with the surprise demotion of Matt Manning to AAA Toledo. He did not make the Tigers' seemingly burgeoning rotation, full of depth and young talent. The rotation will start with Tarek Skubal tomorrow afternoon in the south side of Chicago. It will progress to Kenta Maeda, Jack Flaherty. Casey Mize is I'd call him a surprise fourth starter. Maybe he's the fifth starter. I'm not sure he's going to rotate in there, but coming off injury, he looked fantastic throughout spring training, just dominating with the fastball, which is always good. And then Reese Olson, we saw quite a bit of in the second half of last season, just picked up from there and has a strong arsenal that is AJ Hinch called. Let me get this quote here. AJ Hinch said, Reese Olson can attack so many game plans in so many unpredictable ways, which is definitely something that Hinch is looking for in his pitchers. And you could call that a part of the Fetter effect. Chris Fetter, the now famed Tigers pitching coach, who has really made a big difference with their rotation, their young players and their aging veterans that have come back to reclaim their former top performance levels that we saw with Eduardo Rodriguez over the last couple of years. And hopefully now we'll see with Kenta Maeda and especially with Jack Flaherty, he's looking. I mean, again, I take everything with a grain of salt in spring training, but he looks as good as he has in years, I think. And hopefully that translates also into the regular season. But it just speaks to how much depth suddenly that the Tigers rotation has that hasn't existed in many years. That somebody like Matt Manning, who has proven himself on the major league level, he just had a couple freak injuries last year. He was getting hit by line drives. It wasn't that he had an arm issue of any sort. It was just he kept breaking his foot, getting hit by line drives, which is just bizarre. But now he's, it's almost through no fault of his own. He only gave up 8 hits in all of spring training, which is, and he looked great, except 6 of those 8 hits were home runs. And that kind of soured AJ Hinch on him. He's got to find a way to control damage, is the way he put it. And that just sort of speaks to the Tigers they don't have time to fuck around. They have had horrendous starts to the last 3 seasons. In the months of March and April over 2021, 2022, and 2023, they're combined 25 and 50. It's not the way you want to start a season. It really derailed 2021 because if you remember, the Tigers had a winning record in the next 5 months after April for the first time in like 10 years.
Yep.
That led to the hubris and excitement over 2022, which is just a complete disaster in every way. Like eventually got Alavila fired. But last year, similar things. They screwed up April, started 10-17, and they were a 500 team after that. Yet they were nowhere near clinching the division, even though they had a winning record against every team in the AL Central, including the division-winning Minnesota Twins. So April is critical. It is completely crushed the Tigers in the last 3 years in particular.
Well,
and there is a renewed investment into making sure that the games in March and April are a winning month, a winning time for these Tigers because they have to get off to a good start.
It's a shame you're running into the AL Central buzzsaw known as the Chicago White Sox with...
I thought you were going to say buzzsaw, yeah.
Future, Cy Young winner Garrett Crochet on the mound tomorrow. I mean, geez, it doesn't look good for you guys.
We talked about it.
You'll probably be undefeated in March is my guess, but I mean...
Well, I do fear Crochet. I just don't think he's going to pitch more than 2.5, 2 1/3, 3 innings.
True. There's no reason to really fear the bullpen. So
yeah, then we'll just get into the bullpen and have some fun there. But Crochet, I don't think is going to be your issue.
Yeah. Lots of other things will be though.
Well, I guess that wraps up everything, unless you had anything else you wanted to talk about before we get into our Nostradamus predictions.
This is what I've been waiting for. You're glad you're finally done fucking talking.
Yeah, I'm winded here. So you can go ahead and lead us into it's clearly your favorite segment.
I mean,
it's much anticipated.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to start? Where do we want to start? We want to go east, central, west. Do we want to go?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'll follow your lead wherever you want to go.
Well, let's
take me there.
Let's start with the letter A since it's before the letter N, and we'll go with the AL East. I mean, I think there's a no doubt. I think it's a no doubter here. I don't care, Smitty, if you're like the Rays are always good. The Rays this, the Rays that. There's no way they are going to touch the Orioles. In fact, I doubt most of the AL East is going to stand up to the Orioles this season. The team is stacked, not only with decent veteran talent, but it looks like a successful rebuild has taken place in Baltimore, and I think they're just going to dominate that division and easily win the AL East by like 10 games.
I think you're onto something. We're already agreeing. The 101 win Orioles added Corbin Burns to their fucking rotation.
Yeah.
That I'd say is a good move. Yeah, I've got them running away with this division. To your point, I can't really do my impression of your impression of me, but I am literally sick of always picking the Rays to win the division or get into the wild card race, because they typically, they're in the hunt all the time and they just flame out in the playoffs or flame out at the end of the season. But I'm not picking the Rays to win. I've been doing the same thing with the Blue Jays. I've seen that potential there for years now. I feel like I picked them to at least win a wild card slot because of, I've seen the talent come up through the system, being obviously paying very close attention to my Lansing Lugnuts as I work for the team. Saw Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio come through the system. I've got a soft spot for them, but I've got to cut them off. I'm not picking them this year to certainly not to win the division. I don't even have them in the wild card slot. They've let me down too many times. I'm bored with my own predictions. So I'm shaking things up through no fault of their own. I'm not picking them, I guess. But like you said, Baltimore is the class of the field. We have not discussed the Yankees, which I'm going to get to, I believe, in my wild card predictions. But the Yankees are always an interesting lot. The Garrett Cole injury kind of throws things into a tizzy. But Juan Soto is he's going to be the best hitter in the American League, I think. I drafted him in our fantasy league, AL only fantasy league, with my first pick. That he's going to be a difference maker on that already tough lineup, but they're not going to be. I like your prediction. 10. Did you say 10 games better than anyone in the division?
Yeah, easily.
I think they're going to be in the 100+ win category. The Yankees will probably be in the 90+ win category. So I think that's reasonable. So we're agreeing already in this first of 6 divisions.
I don't agree with the Yankees pick as a wild card, though.
Okay.
Are we doing
the wild card? That's good.
Yeah. So I think the Yankees are
going
to run into more injuries than what we're already seeing with Garrett Cole. It seems like the usual for them. Aaron Judge usually has a little time on the shelf. We know Giancarlo Stanton. Even though I have him on my fantasy team, I realize he's going to have some IL time with that.
Marcus Stroman had issues with the Cubs last year.
Yeah, not mental issues with that guy too. So there's just a lot of there's a lot of money on that team, but I don't know. Does it gel? Does it work? Is it just another version of is it another version of the Padres, which we know that's just a fucking dumpster fire. So
well, it's got to work soon because Aaron Boone's going to lose his job. Ryan Cashman might lose his job. They were kind of hanging by a thread this year. Yeah, you got to think there's one of those Steinbrenners will pull the plug at some point because this is unprecedented for the Yankees to be out of the playoff hunt.
Yeah,
once again, but that's why I think they're probably going to figure out a way to do it.
Maybe. I don't know that they can though. Maybe the problem is Aaron Boone though. I mean, he's had a pretty talented roster. I don't want to talk about the Yankees too much longer, but he's had talented rosters.
I'll stop.
Well, he's had a talented roster the past few years and just doesn't work out for him. So let's move on to the AL Central, where I am moving this team up to AL Central champs, what could be considered a year premature, but I am going with the Detroit Tigers as AL Central champs this year. I love the makeup of this squad. In fact, I actually have Tigers on my roster this year in fantasy baseball. I have Tariq Skubal.
Who do you have?
I have Skubal and Lang on my roster.
You son of a bitch! You're the one that beat me to Skubal. I saw he went off the board fairly early. I didn't see it. He went to you.
Thanks for paying attention. But I wanted.
I was struggling.
I wanted Torque. I wanted Torque too, but Knoppik got Torque before he could come back down.
Yeah, he was fired up about that too.
So yeah, I got Scoobs. Scoobs the dude is gonna dominate this year, and he's gonna probably look pretty good tomorrow afternoon at 3:05 Central Time. That's one of the reasons, just because he's pitching in the AL Central too. But he's got great stuff. That's a big deal. He's got great stuff. There's no denying it. The Tigers are. I don't know, maybe it's Jason Benetti going over there too. Like I got the package. I'm going to be watching more Tigers games. I'm not becoming a Tigers fan, but what I will say is I do enjoy good baseball. And I think the Tigers are going to be playing good baseball this year. And too much of a mystery for me on the South side.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I do want to comment about the White Sox. While I don't have them winning anything, I think, and we kind of got into this last week, and we said we dive in further. I got the White Sox. I think they're going to win. If you're a betting man or woman or a betting person, I would take the White Sox over for wins in Vegas. I think it's sitting at like 60 or 62. They are going to be in the 70 win range just because of improved defense. And when you look at the AL Central, I know I was wrong last year, but I remain unimpressed. I remain unimpressed by the Twins. I'm not impressed at all by the Guardians, except for Jose Ramirez, who's awesome. And the team that might be arguably the next scariest team, which is hard to say because it's so young, but with Bobby Witt Jr. on it and some of the moves they made, the Royals may be the next team to make more noise in the AL Central than anyone else thinks, which is good for the White Sox because they're our feeder system. So, we'll just get everyone past their prime, but anyway,
seems to be, the Royals seem to be either your AAA team or they're the team you want to emulate in every way. So if the Royals do something right, the White Sox will certainly be able to pick up on that and recreate that somehow on the South side,
or attempt to. Yeah, we attempted to recreate the Cubs 2016 World Championship and rebuild. Yeah, we did not.
Plan. Yes.
Failed. No. But those are my thoughts on the AL Central.
I agree again. Of course, that I was going to just be a total homer this year. I haven't been a big as homer as I could have been over the last couple years, but my zigging while I hope you were zagging was to be a total homer this year and pick my Tigers to win the division. And unfortunately, you've picked just like I have. But fortunately, it sounds like you are a Tigers fan now. You and I we're gonna need to talk about. I think it's late June. There's a White Sox series in Detroit. I think you and Robin should drive up to Detroit, pick me up on your way. We'll get some hotel rooms and spend the weekend in Detroit watching the White Sox and Tigers. And you can load up on some gear at Comerica Park.
Oh yeah, sweet. Yeah, I'll get the Tiger Claw.
They'll sell it to you. The Tigers, I haven't been this optimistic about the Tigers in a long time. I'm probably going to get kicked in the balls immediately. We'll see. But I want to take everything in spring training with a grain of salt. But they won 20 games in spring training, meaningless, whatever. But it's better than losing 20 games in spring training, as I've seen them do before. There's a lot of positivity. The pitching looks fantastic right now. The young rotation, but the young position players, the other thing is very exciting. But with youth, there's a lot of volatility. You don't know how Colt Keith is going to play out. You don't know if Spencer Torkelson can repeat what he did with 31 home runs last year. You certainly don't know if Riley Green can stay healthy. You don't know if Kerry Carpenter can hit, be a 20-plus home run hitter every single year. But that'd be a lot of things that would go wrong, which, again, I saw that in 2022. Everything went wrong. And you've seen it as recently as last year with your White Sox, how everything can go wrong. But there's a lot that can go right for the Tigers. And again, the division. The Twins won the division, but they had the losing record to the Tigers last year. The Twins also had to slash payroll by $30 million this year because of that TV deal. They had uncertainty with the Bally Sports bankruptcy that led them to they gutted their pitching staff. The Tigers were actually a beneficiary of that, getting Kenta Maeda. But they lost 40% of their pitching staff. They also didn't add a whole lot. And I just wasn't impressed with them anyway. So I think it's their time to be in a bit of a decline. Guardians, I echo your thoughts. They finished behind technically tied with the Tigers last year, but the Tigers had a winning record against them, so they finished in second. So the Guardians, they of course have the Jose Ramirez, but what else do they have? I do like Tristan McKenzie, Dr. Sticks, which I think is one of the coolest nicknames in baseball. But
also on my fantasy team.
Well, you're killing me. Your rotation. We're going to have to start talking trades maybe in a couple months because I like 2 of your rotation already without knowing the rest. But the Royals are interesting, as you brought up with Bobby Witt, who they just signed to a super long-term deal, which is interesting. He's legit. He went in the first round of our AL only draft, and I was contemplating adding him with my first pick, but he was already gone. I feel like the Royals, we talked about this a couple months ago, actually. They added they kind of confused activity with accomplishment, as I've been famous for accusing the Cubs of doing, where they added a bunch of free agents that are just kind of mid, meh.
That is true.
Who are these guys?
True. Yeah.
And then you learn they're really just trying to generate some interest within the community because they're asking taxpayers to build them a brand new stadium. So there's a thinly veiled marketing attempt to spend maybe $100 million on free agents and get $2 or $3 billion in taxpayers' money. It's a good business decision by the Royals if that's how it plays out. But I think the Royals might be a year or 2 away, but they're going to make things interesting. And it's crazy. They were a tough team to play last year, I thought. Yet they came out on the losing end so many times. So they'll be interesting. But for all the reasons you pointed out, I think we're both on pretty good ground looking for the Detroit Tigers to win the AL Central.
100%. Move over to the AL West. Always a division that's become a lot more interesting.
Boy, they won the last 2 World Series.
Yeah, and the question is it taking over like the AL East? Because like the AL East, like the Orioles are a clear front runner, right? And then you've got that second tier, which you lump the Yankees, Rays, and maybe the Blue Jays in like tier 2.5, and then the Red Sox, right? At least for me anyway, when I think about it. But the AL West, you've got the World Series champ Rangers, you got the Astros as always, but no Dusty.
I just heard a stat today. They've been in the last 8 ALCSs.
Yes.
Somehow I missed that completely. That is fucking crazy.
But they've
been on the precipice of being in the World Series in the last 8 years.
Yeah, Dusty did all right there. He really did.
Yeah.
He is gone, though. He is gone. And then we have the Seattle Mariners, who are kind of like the Blue Jays of the AL West in that I'm always really high on them, but they always
disappoint.
They always tend to disappoint. Now, I know a lot of people are all saying, oh, all the way Astros got this, but I really think the Rangers are going to win the division this year. I think they've got the buzz, they've got the Bochy. They are they've got the difference makers to overtake the Astros to win that division this year. They are a little the pitching staff is a little sketchy, but I think I actually think the Mariners probably have the most solid pitching staff. I mean, Kirby could be a perennial Cy Young candidate this year for the American League, and some of the names escape me, but they have a pretty solid staff there. But I think the Rangers are the most balanced team, even more balanced than the Astros this year. So I'm giving the West to the Rangers.
Well, I am going to give the West to the Seattle Mariners.
Oh,
merely so that we will not keep picking the same goddamn division winners, because this is really fucking boring if we keep doing that. But I did have them written down, mainly because it doesn't really make any logical sense. But for similar reasons, like you said, like I always pick the Rays or the Blue Jays. I always pick the Mariners somehow, and it never works out. But this year, it's gonna work out because nobody's picking them. Because that division is so ridiculous. You've got the last 2 World Series winners in it. I feel like I pick Houston every year through gritted teeth, but they've just been that good and that consistent. I did not see the Rangers coming. I may have had them as a wild card last year. I don't think so. Potentially, but no, it's more hopeful than anything. I'm sick of teams from Texas being in the mix, as Texans tend to care more about football than anything else. I think a division run in Seattle would be really a sight to behold, as those fans would be going fucking nuts. It'd just be fun. I'm rooting for it more than actually believing it's going to happen necessarily. But like you said, the rotation has that depth. You never know. I guess that's my best argument.
Yeah, well,
why Seattle will win the division.
All right.
What I do know is that the Oakland A's will not be winning the AL West, as their opening day is tomorrow. Hopefully there are more people protesting out in the parking lot than there are actually people in the stands taking advantage of the buy one, get one free ticket deal that they were forced to resort to.
Fucking day. That's insane. Even the White Sox
that is the state.
That.
That is the state of baseball in Oakland, that the ownership has created 100% on their own through no fault of the fans, the great fans out there. We lend all the support we can to Oakland A's fans to do everything they can to stop the madness out there. Hopefully get Fisher to actually sell the fucking team. I hope we see crazy scenes in the parking lot outside of the Coliseum tomorrow.
I'm excited to tune into that.
That's actually a reason to tune in, to see how shitty the crowd is. Hopefully there's 2,000 people there at most on the most hallowed day in all of baseball, and see, they would have to at some point show what's going on out in the parking lot, because hopefully there are 20 to 30,000 people out there. I would be there if I wasn't living 2,000 miles away. I pledge my solidarity.
Well, we may still have to get that protest on the books for a game in Chicago, or maybe, I don't know if they're coming to Detroit, because remember the documentarians reached out to us. So
that's right. Yeah, the Summer of Cell documentary. We might find a way to be able to get into that somehow if we actually step up to the plate and do something.
That's a lot of work. We'll see.
We might as well. Yeah, it sounds like a lot. We might as well do our wild card predictions.
All right, let's do it.
Because I already spilled the beans on one of them. I've got the Yankees, just because I feel like they're going to, if they're struggling in the first half at all, they're going to find a way to make some crazy deal at the trade deadline to make sure they get into the playoffs. But I think they're going to be okay. I do think Garrett Cole avoided the most serious of injuries. It sounds like he's going to be back in just a matter of time. I think they can tread water until then. And when he does come back, he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball, at least in the American League. So that's a devastating weapon there. And like I said, they've got Juan Soto, who I believe is going to be the best hitter in the American League. So I've got the Yankees, but then of course I flesh out the rest of my wild card in the American League with two AL West teams. I've got the Rangers and the Astros, because those teams are just better than everybody else, and that most likely one of those will win the division. But I like going with the Mariners.
Well, it's going to be a little boring, but not completely the same. I'm going with the Rays for the wild card. I'm going the Smitty route this year. The Rays
I've done it every year, I think.
I mean, to your point, they may flame out in the playoffs, but it's just such a well-run organization. All the intangibles work for them. I mean, it's probably the best way to put it. There
was a book.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a book written about the Rays that I read probably 10 years ago. Guy's first name is Jonah. He's been since disgraced for like sexual harassment suits, but doesn't mean his book wasn't spot on. It was called The Extra 2%. And it's actually a corporate philosophy where you find margins to gain profits every quarter. And that kind of mentality is what the Rays have applied to their front office and all their decision making. They're finding every little margin, every little thing that they could do to find a way to have an advantage. They do, and they're brilliant at it.
Yep.
So they extract the most out of their limited talent, their limited resources, and it keeps happening to an extent. They have not won the World Series. They've been to 2, but they haven't gotten over the hump. They don't win the division every year. They tend to be in the mix every year, but they can't get over the inherent, liabilities they have with they do not have the payroll of other teams or the resources. So I would love to have picked them, but I'm not this year. I will probably be totally wrong, but that was a good pick on your part.
Well, hey, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
That's what I'm here for. Who else you got?
Oh, well, the Astros and the Mariners as wild card teams. So where it gets boring. I mean, the what like we were just talking about. I don't need to repeat myself. They're stacked. I mean, the West this year reminds me of us picking. The one thing we got right last year was the NL East, and all the teams from the NL East we picked. We all picked them to make the playoffs. The Marlins, the Phillies, and the Braves, and they did. So I feel like we always get one thing right. It's probably the AL West this year. The rest
hopefully
will all be in the shitter.
Right now, you and I only differ on the Rays and the Yankees. I think we've got everyone else in the same teams in the playoffs. So that's interesting.
Well, I think it might get a little bit different when we get to the NL, but who the fuck knows?
I'm ready for the NL. Or should we talk about?
Or you want to do?
Let's go right to the. Yeah, we can do the MVPs and all that shit.
And rookie of the year and all that at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You want me to lead, or you want to lead the NL here?
I can lead the NL.
Lead the NL. I led the AL. You lead the NL.
Well, I'm going to be very boring once again. I think may have picked them last year, maybe the year before as well, but I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves to win the NL East. If I didn't hate all of these teams in the NL East so much, I think it'd be one of the most fascinating divisions to watch, because it seems like there are mega powers in every, 4 mega powers essentially out of 5. I would not include the Marlins in that mix, but there's no reason those teams, at least 4 of those teams, shouldn't be competing every year. And even the Marlins are interesting to a point at times. But I've got the Braves winning. I think they've also got the NL MVP. Well, they do have the reigning NL MVP. And to spill the beans, I'm going to pick him to win back-to-back NL MVPs, Ronald Acuna Jr., as he's probably the most exciting player in baseball. Now that he's healthy, he had the injury in 2022, came back, of course, healthy, and then won the goddamn MVP right away. They also have the best pitching staff in the East for sure. I just think that the Braves are the class of the field. I think the Phillies are going to be in the mix. The Mets are going to Mets. They've had a weird offseason where they haven't really done a ton, which is interesting because you'd think they'd be the ones to make the biggest splashes, and that did not happen for whatever reasons, even though their multi-billionaire owner has all the resources to do anything they fucking want. I think they kind of shot their load last year and are so far over the luxury tax de facto salary cap that they're struggling to figure out how they're going to move forward. But you never know with the Mets. I don't think they're going to be in the mix for long, though. I think the Phillies are going to be interesting for longer. Of course, the Nationals are kind of still in their rebuild.
Yep.
The Marlins, I never know. I always pick them because their pitching has been solid last year. I believe Sixto Sanchez is injured going into this season. I'm not sure if he's scheduled to be coming back, but they got Tim Anderson in the offseason. They do have Jake Berger for your former White Sox over there. So that might be a reason to be paying attention to the East, the NL East over there. But I don't think the Marlins are really going to be in the picture.
Yeah, we're going to go the same on this. I have the Braves. But the interesting thing, though, my gut tells me, pitching in general in the NL East is not going to be, when you look at team ERAs, they're not going to be for starters, not going to be jaw dropping. I mean, because if you look at Atlanta, you got Spencer Strider, you got Max Fried, who, when healthy, is good. But then after that, you got Charlie Morton, you got Chris Sale, and you got Ronaldo Lopez. I mean, it's sketchy.
There are lots of ex-White Sox all over that division.
Yeah, it's very sketcy. And then the Phillies aren't much better because Tijuana or Taijuan Walker just got shelved. I always call him.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, he's
missed that completely.
Yeah, and then Bryce Harper's back flared up, but I mean, I'm sure he'll probably play.
I think he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. Maybe he didn't want to play the last week or something. Who knows? But I still am going to go with the Braves. But I think it's going to be a real battle between the Braves and Phillies this year, and it's going to be who can score the most. So
yeah, that's going to be. That's why I almost want to watch some of those games because I think those are going to be some behemoths that we're going to see play out throughout the season. Maybe I will start watching NL East games. Typically, I just see NL East and it just smells to me or whatever. I just hate all those teams, but I think it's going to be interesting.
I mean, that's one of the excitements I have over the White Sox game on Wednesday. It's against the Braves. I mean, I'm going to see,
nice.
I mean, Charlie and I are jacked to see Acuna in person.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys on the team I can't think of right now.
It's all right. You don't need to be a Braves expert to pick them to win the division.
I don't. Maybe you'll get to see Chris Sale pitch. If so, I think the Sox should wear the 79 jersey.
Oh my God, that would send him over the top. Yeah, with the black or the blue and white collared jersey, untucked collared jersey.
Yeah,
the shorts.
Yep,
he would definitely come unhinged if that'd be brilliant marketing on your part.
Be a great way to win the game.
Well, the NL Central. I've been dying to get to this. I'm sure you have, or maybe not. Of course, I'm going my homer route, maybe against my better judgment. As much as I've railed against the Cubs' practices this offseason, I'm picking them to win the NL Central. Mainly because everyone that was a contender in the NL Central previously has taken major steps back. The Brewers, of course, have lost their manager to my Cubs, but more importantly, they lost Corbin Burns to the Orioles, the front of their rotation. And now Devin Williams, their closer, is out for a couple months with a oblique strain. So the Brewers were kind of in shambles to begin with, and then they had that injury to their closer who's been lights out for several years now. I think the Brewers are taking a major step back. You'd think in the vacuum, the Cardinals would step up. Somehow they chose to replenish the rotation with 3 mid-30s free agents, including our favorite Lance Lynn, who I think is on his way out, if anything. The bulk of their rotation is 35-year-olds, and Sonny Gray is already going to start the season on the injured list. The Cardinals, they've lost their mojo. They've always had some kind of evil black magic. I feel like they've always been able to get things done with smoke and mirrors, and that has totally gone out the window with Ali Marmol as their manager. He does not have that same voodoo shit that their managers have had over the years. Plus, the decision making, their rotation decisions have made no sense to me. They had a bad rotation last year, and they try to bolster it with 35-year-olds. I don't know what they're thinking. Of course, the offense should be there. Arenado and Goldschmidt had terrible seasons last year, or at least subpar seasons. They're just another year older. They might bounce back a bit, but I'm not too scared of their offense either. Of course, the Pirates are the Pirates. They're always about 2 years away. They've got all sorts of young talent, but they're always about 2 years away from being contenders, and then somehow they fuck that up every 2 years. The only team that makes me nervous is the Cincinnati Reds, and they've put together a feisty young roster, I guess I'd put it. They battled the Cubs very tough last year. They're a tough out. Young rotation, young position players, exciting young players. I think they're too young. I think really the only reason I'm picking the Cubs is because everyone else is kind of taking a step back, or they're not quite ready to contend. And I think the Cubs, I've been disappointed in what they did in the offseason. They basically treaded water, but I think it's going to be enough. I think you've got to believe this is a make or break year for Jed Hoyer. They kind of put all their eggs in one basket with hiring a new manager, Craig Counsell. That was their big move in the offseason. Of course, they got Cody Bellinger back, but that's just a returning player. They got Shota Imanaga. We don't know what he's going to be in the major leagues, but that's just to replace Marcus Stroman. The big move was getting a new manager. And so if this does not play out, and if the Cubs are not in contention, you've got to put Jed Hoyer on the hot seat. He has built a renowned farm system, but what the fuck good does a farm system championship do for the major league club if you can't do it? If you can't win more than half your games, and that's right around where they're going to be. That's going to be enough to win the NL Central, though, because everyone has taken a step back. It's been a mediocre division. We've been joking for years how this AL and NL Centrals have been the most mediocre divisions imaginable, and that's going to work to the Cubs' favor. The Cubs, as I say over and over again, they are a behemoth, especially compared to the markets they're facing in their own division. They should be able to blow these teams out of the water every year. I think the Cubs are going to win, but it's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be a struggle all year. I think the Cubs are going to win mid 80s, maybe 84, 85 games. And just because of the division, I think it's going to be good enough.
Well, I'm not going to talk a lot about this because you actually, even down to the fucking games, have said my whole reason for picking the Cubs. It's just by,
oh my God.
It's literally just by what has occurred partially from the other teams in the division. In fact, I think that may have influenced Tom Ricketts and Jed Hoyer to say, all right, we can kind of sit this year out with making any major moves because we just put the same team on the field. We're not going to miss the playoffs this year because it's enough to win the division. And I think that's what their thinking was, right or wrong. Doesn't mean next year's not going to have a different spending platform because maybe there'll be some different moves made in the division. But, I'm the same way. I don't, I've seen him getting penciled in at 90 wins and things like that. I see him like maybe 87 tops. Like I don't.
Yeah, I think that's even generous.
Yeah, I just don't see it, but that's going to be more than enough to win the division. And they'll be decent enough to watch and stuff like that. But yeah, I like you with the Brewers were on the trend upward and now they just kind of leveled off now. And the Cardinals are a dumpster fire. And I want to say
everyone's picking the Cardinals to win.
Well, because of what you said, that they always find a way, right? Was the old Cardinals thing. You don't even know why. They just always found a way to win. But I think that time's over. It's just not going to magically happen thanks to their magical computer system they use. It's like
it hasn't happened over the last couple of years. So it's gone.
I think that
people still buy it.
Yeah, I think that's done. I mean, I bought into it one more year last year. I think I did pick the Cardinals to win the division because I said it's the Cardinals. They're gonna figure out a way to win the division. But what I saw to the Cardinals last year when I did watch some games, I mean, it's not good. It's just not what the Cardinals were in any way, shape, or form. And I see no reason to believe that they're going to do any better. I also I was tempted to go with the Reds for the division in a reach pick because the Cubs struggled a lot with them last year. They really did. And they do have a lot of young up and coming talent, but I think they need another year or two to get a little more seasoned over there. And then they are going to be a real legit threat. And the Pirates are the Pirates. So it is what it is. So yeah.
Pirates were really good for a month last year, maybe 2 months. And then they just completely fell apart.
They were injured. They were in first place for a little bit, I think, in the Central.
Yeah. I think for 40 games, after 40 games, they were still in first, but then it just all went off the rails because Pirates are going to pirate.
Arr, matey.
Well, are you ready to move on to the NL West?
Oh, I sure am.
Final division. Hopefully now we will finally have differing picks, but this is boring as fuck, but I've got to go with the greatest lineup ever assembled, the LA Dodgers. It's ridiculous what they do, how they put this together. As much as I don't want to pick them, look at that fucking lineup. It's ridiculous. You add Shohei Ohtani to it. No, I don't think he's going to be suspended for betting on baseball anytime soon. He will be in that lineup. Even with his arm issues, he's a very effective designated hitter. When he does come back, probably not this year, he adds to that rotation. That's a whole nother conversation in 2025, but it's as sick to my stomach as it makes me. I have to pick the Dodgers. It's just, they're the class of Major League Baseball, essentially, when you look at that lineup. The beauty of it, though, is I am not picking them to win the World Series because they always fuck it up in a small sample size in the playoffs. So that's the part I will enjoy, at least watching them flounder once again in the playoffs. But I got to pick them to win the division.
Well, I was going to tell you, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah,
the Dodgers are not winning the division. The fucking San Francisco Giants are winning the fucking division. Remember the Giants left for dead in 2021 with a team that is worse than the team they've just put together, especially over the last 3 weeks of the season. They won 107 games, made the Dodgers the wild card. Well, guess what? The Dodgers are going to be the fucking wild card again. And part of the reason they're going to be the wild card is Shohei Ohtani is going to have an off season because he's not going to be able to deal with the mental stress of this situation that is bearing down on him. He's not.
I like this.
In fact, we may ever even see, I agree, Ohtani's not getting suspended, folks. But do you remember when Michael Jordan retired from basketball to go play baseball? I'm not saying Ohtani's going to retire from baseball to go play basketball, but he may have some mystery downtime to reset himself and come back.
He could play for the Clippers, probably. I think that might make sense.
Maybe. But what we're going to see is this greatest show Ohtani lineup assembled in the history of baseball flounder, and Dave Roberts have that dumbfounded look on his face like he always has in the fucking playoffs. Like, what's happening? Seen it. We've seen it over and over again. They are the greatest COVID team ever assembled, but that's all they will ever be. The Dodgers are not winning the division. The Giants the Giants are going to they're going to run away with NL awards this year. The Giants it's an even year. It's 24. They are going to dominate and they're going deep in the playoffs.
Hold on. I gotta stop you here. You're referring to the even years 2010, 2012, and 2014?
That's right. Sometimes you refer to those as the Scudero effect, but I refer to them as the Bochy effect.
World Series.
Go ahead.
Your World Series champion years.
Yes.
But somehow those just skip a decade every so often.
Because we got a legit guy back in the dugout in Bob fucking Melvin. And he is going to be the difference maker. He's going to be the difference maker. He's going to outmanage Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts will be like, well, what's going on? That's what's going to be the fucking game. So Giants.
That sounds a lot like your impression of me, actually.
Well, maybe I only do one impression, Smitty. Do you catch on to that yet?
Starting to catch on.
Well, I'm fired up.
I love that. That's the best rant we've had all show. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I hope I got you fired up by picking the Dodgers, actually.
Yeah.
We're not even going to give any consideration. What's that? Go ahead.
I said that's a dumpster fire about to happen over there in LA, but I think the Diamondbacks have made the right moves too. So I think you got a three-headed monster there. You really do, all kidding aside. But the Giants are better than the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks.
I was wondering if we were going to give any consideration to the World Series appearing Diamondbacks, but I am not, and I appreciate that you are not. They have actually added to that roster quite significantly, yet I think they're going to take a step back. They barely made the playoffs last year. The Cubs were one game behind them. Cubs could have easily been in the playoffs, and that may have changed a lot of narratives. But like you said, once you get in, you never know what the fuck's going to happen. And the Diamondbacks made it all the way to the World Series, but I don't think they're going to have that same kind of magical run this year.
I agree.
Padres, I love to pick every year, it seems like, either to win the division or to at least be in the wild card. Losing Juan Soto. They did add Dylan Cease. Lost Blake Snell, Cy Young Award-winning Blake Snell, who's now on your Giants. It's another reason to support you. I just San Diego just went for it in a crazy way, spending all sorts of money they didn't really have, and it didn't work out. It's like they're kind of now finding, getting the hangover from that spending party and dealing with that. Do I even need to mention the Colorado Rockies? Like that they're going to be worse than the A's, who are trying to leave the city they're in. The Rockies are just a fucking disaster. Just a horribly run organization that former Cubs legend Chris Bryant somehow had no idea when he signed the 8-year deal or whatever the fuck he's got with them.
I guess I should have.
He had no idea they were such a poorly run organization.
I guess I should have done my homework. Yes.
Yeah, he literally said that. But well, if we want to go into our wild card predictions, I will say that I did pick your San Francisco Giants to make the wild card.
Loser.
To back up your statements there. I really believe in the Bob Melvin effect. I think he's a top 5 manager. It was a huge loss for the A's when they decided to just let him go for really monetary reasons more than anything back when it happened. But
it was bizarre.
Yeah, we did a whole segment on it way back when. But I've also got the Phillies in the wild card, as we talked about earlier. I think they're going to make the NL East very interesting, but they're not going to be enough to take over the Braves. But I think I have them in the wild card. And then I have the aforementioned Cincinnati Reds breaking through.
Whoa!
They're going to be a wild card for the reasons I said before. They're a tough out. It seems like every time that they play the Cubs tough. And that's the only time I ever watch the Reds. I just think they're not going to have quite enough to take it to the Cubs, but I think they're going to make the playoffs, at least in the expanded wild card format.
Well, I think the West is going to have the Diamondbacks and Dodgers in as wild card this year. I think we're going to have 3 teams come out of there this year. And then
probably a wise bet.
The boring pick, of course, is the Phillies. Yes, they'll be there. I think the Phillies and Braves again. We're going to see a lot of runs scored in the NL East this year. I mean, I'm betting the Mets pitching staff's going to have an average ERA of like 5.25. So it's going to be some runs put up there. But Philly's got the horses to be in that division all year. And, the
Philly's got the horses. I like that.
Yeah.
Did you do that on purpose?
I just make magic over here. Okay. I just make magic. And then, going back to the West, I think the Diamondbacks, I think they've improved, and it'll be enough for them to get in the playoffs because of all the problems in the Central. I mean, I do like your pick of the reach pick of the Reds making it. That would actually be kind of fun if they
reach.
Did. But yeah, I think the Diamondbacks and Dodgers, you can put them in. Of course, we know the Dodgers probably will lose in the first round like they always do, but
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
What we will predict on this show and be right about is the Dodgers will not be in the World Series, everyone. Consider it done.
Love it. Yeah. Well, I think for at least the second, maybe the third or fourth year in a row, I believe you and I have picked the same 10 out of 12 playoff participants. We only differ in a couple places, a couple wild cards, but I think we're very consistent. You and I don't talk about this at all. And we've hardly talked about most of these teams, certainly in the off season. We're navel gazing at our own teams over here at your White Sox and Giants. And I'm always obsessing with my Cubs and Tigers, but we haven't talked about any of these other teams or what we thought about them. So it's amazing that you and I keep coming up with the same thing, at least division wild card wise. Should we go talk about our World Series prediction?
Before you get to that, I think there is one shred of good news. If our predictions for our teams come true this year, we will be talking about playoff baseball on this podcast.
Oh my God.
Versus the most miserable year in podcast history last year. Like maybe that's why we're picking the way we are. I don't know, but I want to turn the mojo of this podcast around. And if things come to fruition with our teams at minimum here, it's going to be a lot more fun on this podcast this year.
Just imagine if we were doing a podcast in 2016 with the Cubs Giants series, like one of the most emotional, crazy series.
Ugh.
Two ridiculous games to end that series. I think we'd have to do a daily podcast. Actually, we'd have to go after every game or during every game if we're facing each other. That might get ugly, actually. But yeah, the content possibilities limitless compared to what we've experienced so far in the 5 years we've been doing this podcast. Our playoff coverage has been minimal because we're not very interested in who's been in it. But can you imagine? So yeah, we're rooting for content. We're rooting with our hearts, but we're also rooting for content because that would be so much goddamn fun. So I like it. Maybe that's what our underlying unconscious decision making has been with these picks. But well, I'm going to be boring as fuck, but I think everyone has predicted the Braves over the Baltimore Orioles in 6 games in my World Series. What do you got?
I got the San Francisco Giants over the Baltimore Orioles in 5 games.
Wow. 5. All right. Well, that'd be good for podcast content. I guess I'd root for that if anyone's going to win it. I don't know if I want to root for the Giants though, but it'd be nice to see you happy about baseball again. So
I'm pretty jacked up for the season. Look, I'm wearing a Giants hat tonight. Did you notice that?
I noticed.
Yeah, I'm all in.
I'll root for my friend over there.
I'm all in.
Root for the Giants, but I'll root for my baseball loving buddy over there.
I'm all in.
All right. Take it easy. MVPs.
All right.
I've got Adley Rutschman from the Baltimore Orioles. I think he's a strong MVP candidate. I've got Ronald Acuna Jr. I think I spilled the beans earlier to go back-to-back NL MVPs. I've got both those teams in the World Series, so I thought there was some logic there. Adley Rutschman and Ronald Acuna Jr. are your MVPs.
I'm going homers on MVPs. I'm going Luis Robert. Now that the deck has been cleared with Ohtani leaving the AL, Robert was definitely played an MVP season last year, but was overshadowed definitely by Shohei Ohtani, who was probably betting on himself during those games. Which, is that illegal if you bet on yourself? I don't know. We'll find out maybe.
The question is, when you don't bet for yourself, what message does that send to everyone who knows your betting patterns?
Exactly.
That was the Pete Rose That's the Pete Rose argument that people fucking never understood. Like, well, if he bet on himself, then he can't be bad. What? Sorry, you just set me off again because this is a very old rant, but it just still drives me crazy how naive people are. But go ahead. Sorry.
And then NL MVP. This is a reach. It's a reach pick. But I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to bring there's going to be a lot of splashes in San Francisco. Jorge Soler is the NL MVP.
I love that. That's great.
Everything's coming up Giants in the NL.
Yeah, you knew that was not going to coincide with my pick. So that's a brilliant pick right there. I like that. Well, speaking of going homer, if we switch over to our Cy Young Award winners, I got to go with Tarik Skubal. You called it. You picked him in our fantasy draft. You might dominate. Tarik Skubal would have been a candidate for Cy Young last year if he had pitched the whole season. He pitched the second half and I would say easily the best pitcher in the American League in that second half of the season. He looks better. It's again, God, it just kills me, and it's fighting my own logic. But he looks so good in spring training. He's just added to his repertoire, added to his confidence, added to his acumen. He's winning the MVP, and that's part of the reason he's winning the Cy Young. That's part of the reason the Tigers are going to win the division. I've also got Zach Wheeler from the Phillies. That's part of the run why they're going to make it into the wild card. It's basically, I feel like he finished number 2 in Cy Young voting last year, maybe around that. But
yeah,
I just like that name. I probably should pick somebody from the Braves, but I don't want to do that. I'm gonna mix things up and go with Zach Wheeler from the Phillies.
Well, when we look at AL Cy Young, we're gonna agree on this one. I went with Skubal for my pick for the AL Cy Young. One of the reasons
that makes sense. You picked him in our fantasy league. I
did. I'm all in on him. I think he's got a wicked arsenal. So hopefully he stays healthy all year. But
yes.
For the first time, I don't know when. I actually have no data on when this happened. I meant to look it up and forgot. But we will have a repeat NL Cy Young winner in Blake Snell from the San Francisco motherfucking Giants, who are running away with this thing.
Yeah, how could you not? If you don't win the World Series with the MVP and the Cy Young Award winner, then you've done something wrong. So yes, you win. If Blake Snell gets back-to-back Cy Youngs and Jorge Soler gets the MVP, the San Francisco Giants will indeed win the World Series. I see your logic there. Might be circular logic, but there is some logic. That's right. Great. We are going total homer here. This is why it's fun. I'm gonna take your homerism and up you 2 homers. I'm picking the Detroit Tigers' Parker Meadows to win AL Rookie of the Year, who I spoke of last week. There's a lot of people talking about Colt Keith, second baseman for the Tigers, being a dark horse Rookie of the Year candidate. I'm going to go dark horse with Parker Meadows. Like I said last week, he found a way to supplant Riley Green in center field, who was already a tremendous center fielder.
True.
That's part of why I love what the defense is going to look like, at least in the outfield for the Tigers. They've got 2 center fielders essentially. Meadows again has been raking. He did well in his 37 games in the majors last season. He's only picked up from that in this spring, and I think he's going to pick up from there. You haven't heard a whole lot of talk about him. That's why I love making this pick. Colt Keith would have been fun, but I saw too many people picking him as the dark horse pick. So I'm going to go with Parker Meadows. I actually picked up both of those fellows on my fantasy team. So for better or worse, we'll see how that works out. But the homerism does not stop there because I'm picking Michael Busch to win the NL Rookie of the Year as he's are you kidding me? Yes, he's the Cubs' first baseman. He is top prospect out of the Dodgers organization. The main reason I'm going to pick him as Rookie of the Year is I think he's ready to produce on the major league level, but he's also going to be like the oldest Rookie of the Year candidate because he is 26. He just comes in under the wire to be a Rookie of the Year candidate. So I think his age and relative experience is going to make him the Rookie of the Year and help carry the Cubs to a NL Central division title.
The other teams are going to help carry the Cubs. The other teams in their division will help carry the Cubs.
Okay.
Anyway,
we've established this.
My AL Rookie of the Year, and also as I complete my AL picks, you'll see a trend. Every one of these players is on my fantasy team. I'm going with Wyatt Langford from the Rangers. He's going to make some noise. He's probably going to hit. I'm gonna toss him in about 22 dingers there. 22 dingers for Langford.
That's another guy you picked on in our fantasy league about 1 round before I was going to grab him. I've seen his names on a lot of breakout Rookie of the Year lists, and I think that's a very, very wise pick there. I think you're onto something there.
And just to complete the sweep in the NL for Rookie of the Year, Kyle Harrison, who is going to win 15 games for the Giants, is going to win Rookie of the Year. Giants.
We brought him up briefly last week or the week before. I just remember Keith Law wrote him in as potential 200 strikeout guy as a rookie. If he gets to those levels, 15 wins and 200 strikeouts, yeah, he's going to be right there for Rookie of the Year. I like that.
The Giants are back, baby. Watch out.
Yeah, you did the homer sweep right there. Yeah, we got a lot of homers in there. And I picked my teams to win the division. You picked the Giants to win your division. Yeah, this is the homer, definitely the homer Nostradamus picks this year. But hey, they're all meaningless. That was fun. That's what it's all about. So we will, of course, hold ourselves accountable after the season is over, as we did this past October. Much to our own laughter, how bad our picks were that year. Somehow, I think these are great picks. I think these are fantastic picks. I think that every year, of course.
I'll have my Giants replica World Series trophy right next to me when we do the post show.
All right. Great. We'll see. I'll look forward to that then. Well, I think we can wrap up this Nostradamus episode, our 2024 preseason predictions. We are a mere, what time is it now? We are, 9 hours? No, we are 15 hours. What time's the first game tomorrow? 1 o'clock Eastern?
I'm assuming, yeah.
We're probably about 15 hours away from first pitch of the 2024 Major League Baseball season. I'm fired up. I cracked a beer. I'm in such a celebratory mood. Tomorrow's a holiday, it feels like to me every year. Major League Baseball did things really well, scheduling all 30 teams to play all day long, all night long. I'm looking forward to all of this. I was worried, since they typically build in, a rain game, like the Cubs are not playing on Friday. The Tiger and White Sox are not playing on Friday, but there are still like 8 games on Friday. So this is really the kickoff to one of my favorite sports weekends of the year. We've got the Final Four going on, Sweet 16 tomorrow night, but it's going to be hard to follow when I'm watching the Tigers White Sox at 4:00 Eastern time, and then 7:30. I think the Cubs are playing the Rangers, starting with the world champions. So that's going to be a strong test for the Cubs. But wow, I am excited for baseball. This evening. This baseball eve is the last night without baseball for the next 7 months, essentially. So we've got baseball, folks. I'm fired up. Pete is obviously you look fired up over there.
I am ready to fucking go. And some bad news though, we don't get the first game until 3:05 Eastern time tomorrow.
Really? I assumed there'd be like a 1:00 game.
Well, I think there was there's the Mets and the Phillies game have already been postponed because of weather tomorrow.
Oh, weather. God damn it.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. All right. Yeah, we've had horrible weather here in the Midwest. I don't know what it's doing there in Chicago, but it's been shitty. Tomorrow looks like it's getting better. Friday looks beautiful here, and the weekend's going to be good. We're finally going to get into some spring, but I guess is the danger of starting the goddamn season in March. Like, what the fuck are we doing? But I'm ready. It's going to be awesome. So I think until then, we're going to figure out. I think, did you say you're going on vacation? Or you're going to be away? We're not going to be doing a podcast for a couple weeks?
Yeah, just I'm out next week, spring break with the kids.
Next week? So
yeah.
Cool. So probably in 2 weeks, we will recap everything that's happened. Can't imagine the storylines we're going to have. It's awesome that the Tigers and White Sox are facing off to begin with. We'll break that series down, see what the Cubs are up to, and what your Giants, how their march to the World Series is going to go.
Probably going to be talking about like 8-0 or some shit like that. So,
are we going to have any insight into what the fuck's going on with Shohei Ohtani in 2 weeks? I don't think anything's going to change.
No.
I think we're going to forget about the news cycle is going to shift. We're going to be talking about games. I don't think people are even going to be talking about this shit anymore. Unreal. That's how the world works, it seems. But regardless, tune in a couple weeks when we get to episode 146 after this number 145 Nostradamus episode. Check that out. You can find us on social media at Sox Type Thing and at Major League A-Holes. You can find our burgeoning YouTube channel at Major League A-Holes. You can find us on the web at soxtypething.com and majorleagueaholes.com. And you can find these podcasts anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, we can declare the season started and this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.